Hi everyone, my name is Miklo Alcala, and for today's bone assignment video, I'm going to be walking you through how to sight and how to know parts of the temporal bone found in your cranium. And with my handy dandy friend over here, Mr. Alucard, he's going to be helping us sight and know parts of your temporal bone, both ectocranially and endocranially. Because I don't have a fragment of the temporal bone with me, I'm going to be using Mr. Alucard's skull over here to actually help you sight and pinpoint all the parts that we need to know for the temporal bone for this class. And to start, I'm actually going to position him in which his anterior is going to be facing my left, posterior to my right, and superior up. Now from your perspective, his anterior would be on your right, posterior left, and superior remains the same. And I'm going to start with his ectocranial bone structure first of the temporal bone. As you can see, this is Mr. Alucard's right side of the skull, where his right temporal bone also sits. Now I'm going to point at the bone structures that we need to know for this class. And the first bone right here that we're going to see is the zygomatic process. Kind of looks like a not so straight line, also a little bit curved. And just above that is the squama. The squama kind of looks like an oblong, kind of shaped like a triceratops head, and it has rigid edges. Now just below that is your mandibular fossa, which is covered by this rubber-like structure over here that is actually reminiscent of your articular disc that actually helps with the movement of your mandible. And together with your temporal bones and your mandible, this whole structure over here is actually your temporal mandibular joint, which enables the movement of your mandible when you're speaking, when you're eating, or when you're yawning. It can enable it to move up and down, side to side. And more specifically, these condyles over here on your mandible attached to that articular disc explained earlier. Now moving on, a little slightly over that is the external auditory meatus. Looks like a cave. And below that is your styloid process that protrudes inferiorly. Next to that is your massoid process, which also protrudes inferiorly, shaped like a reverse mountain, if I say so myself. And on the medial side of the massoid process is where you can find the mastoid notch, which is right over here. Some tips and tricks that actually help me remember these structures more efficiently is the fact that the zygomatic process, like I said before, is kind of like a curved, not so straight line over here. The squama actually reminds me of a triceratops head, more specifically Barney's friend from the kids show Barney and Friends. The green dinosaur is a triceratops, and her head structure actually is helpful to remember this particular part of the temporal bone. Now, the external auditory meatus reminds me of a cave-like structure, and the styloid process also reminds me of a structure inside a cave that's called a stalactite that hangs on top of the cave. Now, although the styloid process is not exactly inside the external auditory meatus, it lies inferior to that. What makes me remember both of these structures clearly is the fact that when I see the external auditory meatus, I think of a cave. Now, if I look inferiorly to that cave, I see a styloid process or like a stalactite-like structure. Now, I think this might help you guys with determining these structures in the future, but this is how I see it. Now, slightly to the left of that is your massoid process. How I remember the massoid process is the fact that if you've ever watched Adventure Time, there's this character called Lumpy Space Princess, and although you could remember this as a reverse mountain as well, it's just funnier to me. It kind of looks like a lump on your head, and yep, that's how I remember some of these structures. To be consistent with determining Alucard's right temporal bone structures endocranially, I have now changed my camera position to look at a superior view and angle of the endocranial vault, in which now the interior part of his skull is on my left and his posterior part of his skull is on my right. Now, if we dive deeper here into the endocranial vault, you see over here that this little divot that looks like a pyramid is actually called the Petrus pyramid, also known as the Petrus process. It also kind of looks like a T-Rex's head, as explained in class. And moving on over here what you can see here is the edges of the squama that you've seen earlier in the external part or in the ectocranial part of this video. So those were all the temporal bones that we need to know for this class. I hope you enjoyed. Bye!